Hello, everyone, if you're getting seated. Can you hear me? Great. Hello, my name is Marion. I'm very happy to be here today. Um, Hola, buenas tardes, estimados señoras y señoras. Yo hablo un poquito de castellano con un poquito de acento argentino. Entonces, si tienen alguna duda o alguna pregunta, me pueden preguntar en castellano, pero decidí hacer la charla entera en inglés, porque si lo hiciera en castellano, yo necesitaría como 3 horas y creo que ustedes no quieren quedar acá para 3 horas, y yo tampoco. Therefore, we'll do this talk today in English. I hope you can understand me. I will try to speak slow. And if you have questions, or also if you have questions after the talk, you're welcome to ask in Spanish. So today I'm going to be speaking about if you have 3 wishes, what would they be? I will be speaking about misperceptions in security. I will be speaking about obstacles of young people, like you, young talented people, obstacles that they face when they want to enter the information security field. So if I'm asking every one of you now to think about a wish that you would have or something that you would like to be in your life that you don't have yet, think about a wish. And I'm actually a bit sad that I'm really sure that any wish you might come up with will, for pretty sure, not look like this. This might be an awkward picture for a lot of you. And this is a tool that I like very much. And if I would have to think about a wish that I have, if I wouldn't have one already, I would wish for a license for this tool. I would wish for an IDA Pro license. And today I'm going to give you an introduction on how I came to that wish, or why I think this wish is important, and why I would love to have a lot more people around who actually have the same wish. So the problem that especially my industry faces today is a lot of people look at this kind of screen and they don't think it looks anything fancy. They don't find this picture appealing. So today we're going to talk about why this is the case and why there should be more people being enthusiastic in reverse engineering malware. In the second part of my talk, I will be speaking about different obstacles that the industry itself faces for having too few specialists or having too few engaged people actually like to work on problems that we face today and like to provide solutions. My name is Marion. As the moderator already told you, I'm a malware analyst and reverse engineer. I work for a company based in California, in Santa Clara, named Cyford Incorporated. What this company does is we work on threat detection. We try to provide new tools and new security solutions to detect threats. And exactly this science of detecting threats today is having big troubles, or facing big problems that we'll be presenting to you today. As I mentioned, the talk will have 2, or better said 3 parts. The first of it will be my personal story and how I entered this information security field and why I think it's important to be here. The second part, I will show you some case studies on how threat detection today is kind of stuck or is facing problems that we can't solve with the current solutions we have. And then the third part, I will show you how you could actually add to the problem and work on a solution. So, first of all, I wanted to introduce myself a bit more and give you an idea of why I'm here today and why I'm speaking here today. I actually have a very short career in information security, which began like not even 3 years ago when I started to reverse engineer binaries. Actually, I got in informatics or information science a long time before that, when I started to do a technical high school and I tried to learn to code, to develop software. After that, I went to university where I tried to learn about security, about information security. After that, I was like stuck in my life because I was like one of these disillusioned teenagers or post-teenagers who didn't quite know what to do with all the stuff that I learned at university. And then there was a project which proposed to work on malware for my final thesis, and I thought malware kind of sounds cool. Today I meet a lot of people who actually think the same thing. Malware sounds cool, it sounds challenging, it's like something new, it's something exciting. And I can very well understand this thought. I had the same thing. So after writing my thesis about malware and malware analysis, I started at an antivirus company, working there as a junior analyst, and actually being not really challenged with my life, because you might imagine that the malware analyst is busy with reverse engineering malware the entire day and trying to find new things and doing really exciting stuff. But in fact, What a lot of malware analysts do nowadays is not reverse engineering binaries, but sorting binaries. So what I did back then in my job wasn't really challenging. I was moving samples from one share to another share and trying to create signatures or trying to tell other people roughly what the binaries were doing, but it was not interesting. So after a while, being a malware analyst, I found there is a challenge, a reverse engineering challenge for females. Throughout my life, I was always pretty scared of debuggers, or pretty scared of these binaries because I didn't understand them. And as I'll show you later on, humans tend to be scared of things they don't know. So one day I saw this challenge for females for reverse engineering binaries, and I thought, if there is like a challenge dedicated to females, I am female, I should be able to do it. So I started on that challenge and worked very hard for a long time and finally won the challenge, which was a big thing in my life. Like everything, like after the challenge, all of a sudden everything made boom. All of a sudden I understood that reverse engineering binaries was not the biggest problem humanity ever faced, and that actually some young and unskilled person like me could do it, because it's something you can learn. And what I see today, if I go to conferences like this one, or if I'm teaching at university, or if I'm seeing a class of high school students, they all ask the same question, like, how do you start with that? How do you get into this? How do you get where you are? And I never have a really good answer to them, because I can't tell them anything else than that just do it and go out and try. So today I wanted to get into this problem a bit more of what keeps people from actually doing these really technical tasks, and what holds them back from getting into technology. Technology is something that in general scares people more than a lot of other sciences that we have out there. So if I talk to people what they actually want to do with their life, it's like, no, I don't think I'm going to be a low-level programmer. I rather think I want to be a journalist, or I want to be an author, or I want to work in multimedia design, or I want to study politics, or I want to, I don't know what, all these kind of other sciences that never really appeared that interesting to me. But the problem is that in our modern society today, we're facing all these topics over and over again. We see books, we see graphical design, we see all other sorts of multimedia, we see economy and politics in our everyday life and experience all the time, but we don't necessarily experience the inner workings of binaries on a daily basis. We don't necessarily experience discrete mathematics every day. And this is something, I don't say we have to change this. I don't want to do discrete math every day in the morning for breakfast, but what we have today is like people seeing the same easily understandable sciences over and over again and liking them more because they're actually used to it and because they understand it. We as humans, we tend to like things that we understand. We tend to like things that we're good at. And we're good only at things that we practice regularly. So I was seeing, as I'm not very skilled and not very experienced in reverse engineering binaries, it scares me. I'm afraid of opening a debugger and going through the binary because I don't understand what I'm seeing. If I would understand it better, I would like it more. If I would practice more, I would understand it better. So this problem is actually circular. So I think if we as humans would be exposed more to technology, be exposed more to the inner workings of technology, we would like it a lot more and not have these obstacles of actually entering these fields. So finally, it all boils down to a question of perception. I will give you a practical example. I actually prepared a story that I wrote down a long time ago, which is still valid. I want to tell you the story about how I learned how to park cars. This is a very personal story. It's not easy for me to share. No, I'm kidding. I'm today pretty good at parking cars, and I want to tell you how that happened. So I started to drive cars when I was 17, did my driver's license, and I always had in mind that I'm not good at driving cars because naturally I can't drive cars very well. And I actually figured out while doing the driver's license that I'm really not good at driving cars, especially not at parking them. So I kind of passed this driver's license exam and just decided to never ever park a car again. The day came, I started university, and university gave me a lot of challenges, a lot of obstacles, especially when it was about getting to class early in the morning. So going to university for me was always better taking the car because then I didn't have to take the bus, which was very, very early. So I took the car and went to university, and there I had this issue that everyone else did the same thing, and of course we had a fight among the parking places. So Every day in the morning, I had to do this decision to either park my car in a very small spot, which I eventually found somewhere at university, or park the car very far away and walk for a long time. This was an easy challenge. This took on for 5 years. I had 5 years of time to actually get myself to try to place that car into these little spots around the university. And you know what? After 5 years of ridiculous car parking, it took me always a long time to get that stupid car in the slot. After 5 years of ridiculous parking, now I'm an expert in parking cars. When I had started back then with 17 driving cars, I was really afraid of parking the car. Because, you know, you can scratch the car, you can scratch other cars, it's a dangerous thing to park a car. So this fear was actually something that made me think that I would never be good at parking cars, because it was something that I didn't understand, and I didn't try often enough. So I didn't have practice, and in fact, I didn't learn it before I had to go to university. And this is something that's also a question of perception. So now I'm asking you, if you're out there and you think you could reverse engineer binaries, you think you could be interested in this, if you couldn't like get yourself to actually try it and exercise it. So, what do you think you're good at? And is there anything else that you think you could actually want to achieve and are not able to yet? Because I think everyone can learn everything. And on the other side, I'm starting the second point today, innovation. There's something, you're in a very special business. Information security business is a rather small business, it's a rather young business, and there's a lot of opportunities in there. And currently in this kind of business, or especially in the threat detection industry where I'm in, we experience an innovation gap. The innovation gap for me is something where there's a lot of space for young, bright minds to actually move something, to find problems that are out there and prepare solutions, and provide these solutions to people who actually need them. I can tell you it's very beautiful to work in an industry where you do something and people are actually happy that you did it, and they're happy to receive a new solution or receive a new idea, and they're actually happy to have you there. About this information gap provides a lot of opportunities for young, bright minds like you, where you could help on working on these solutions for specific problems. In that case of this gap, where there's this big empty vacuum that needs people like you have a lot of opportunities, a lot of chances to actually make your own life better. And here I will bring you some points of why I like to be in this business, why I think it's great. There's like an ongoing flow of challenges. In information security, you will never get bored. That's the one thing. There's a lot of interesting characters. You might have figured out at this conference here, there's interesting people running around. If you have talked to other attendees, you might have figured out you have interesting ideas. They're happy to share their ideas. They're happy to talk to you. Maybe they're even happy to have a beer with you after the conference. I always enjoyed going to these kinds of events and sharing ideas, because it makes you learn yourself so much more than you do at home and reading a book. The other thing that I've heard before already from another speaker, there's ridiculous appreciation. If you're a hacker out there, if you're able to break systems, if you're able to analyze a binary, if you're actually able to do things that other people don't understand, you receive ridiculous appreciation. You have people looking up to you that you didn't even know could ever look up to you. There's something, at some point, yes, it's ridiculous. At other things, it's nice, sometimes. Another thing is there's less personal competition. A lot of friends of mine work in businesses where there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of people who want to be manager of, I don't actually know what all these people are working on, but there's a lot of people storming to get the same job position. And in my industry, there's just so few people that you have the better chances of actually getting a cool job, actually raising in your career ladder, and actually get the interesting tasks to do. A good friend of mine, she's like the assistant of the person who actually has the job that she wants to have. Her chances to get the job are like something between 5 and 10 years. This is somewhat reality. And I tell you what, I'm happy with the job I have, because I have a job that I actually love, and I actually like very much. And this is something that I would want all of you also, to have a job that you actually like, that you appreciate, and to have a position where they are appreciated by their bosses, by their companies, and by their colleagues. And this is something which I experienced very beautiful in information security, that there's a lot of appreciation, sometimes ridiculous. In our field, you will in general make more money than in most other technology industries, or let's say in most other industries which are not connected to technology. There's very good salaries to make out there. you will experience more freedom than you usually do if you're the assistant of the guy who has the job that you want. As a researcher in information security, I experience so much freedom, I don't even know where it comes from. Like, I find an idea, I tell my manager, I think this could be a good thing to implement. He's like, yeah, try it and tell me what you found out. They have so many friends receiving it the other way, having their managers tell them, you have to do this, and then you have to do this, and then you have to do this other thing, and they're actually not even interested in all the projects that you get. So I personally think that in information security research, you have still a chance to realize your own dreams. Even if you're young and you're not like very experienced, you can still do what you want and think it's cool. And last, but not least of it all, you will have fun. Trust me, you will have fun. If you find all these problems, or if you see all these problems that information security has, and you provide your own solutions, this is rewarding. If you're actually doing something, providing solutions for problems of other people, and they're happy to get it, this is very rewarding and makes you yourself happy. So you will have fun, for sure. All right, so what is the gap that I'm talking about? This innovation gap, or all the problems that are out there. And personally, I tell you, I'm not a hacker, I'm not a specialist in so many things, but I spent some time on threat detection. Today I wanted to show you some case studies on why I think the threat detection is fundamentally broken, why we need a lot of bright minds to actually fix it or come up with new ideas that work better or are able to provide integrated security better than actually applied security. So today I wanted to talk to you about a case study which I did on the A and the P of the T. I work in a company, we try to detect APTs, which are advanced persistent threats. There is a fundamental problem with threat detection, as threat detection finds known threats, and we actually need solutions that find unknown threats, because this is one of the attributes of APTs. It's malware, or it's a threat which hasn't been seen before. Unless we have this fundamental problem, the threat detection always finds stuff which has to be known in some way, we'll never find the stuff that we've never seen before. I'll show you a quote which a very good friend of mine came up with, who was working on the same problem, on the APT detection, who said, advanced is something which we don't understand, while persistent is something which we just didn't detect. So with this quote in mind, I came up with some ideas which actually make up an APT, or a sophisticated malware, which from the ethical perspective could make that malware more complicated to detect, to evade detection. From these ideas, it was 7 points that I came up with to make threats more complicated. From these 7 points, I created a scala to actually evaluate some APT malware samples, which I had looked at before, and try to evaluate these samples of how sophisticated they really are. Now let me introduce you to my 7 points, the 7 sins of today's threats. Sin number 1 would be not being unique. If you have malware and you want to infect more than one system, you need to get some abstraction in there. Otherwise, as you remember, like threat detection searches for patterns, it searches for known threats. If you want to infect more than one machine, you create a pattern if you use the same binary all over again. As we had it some time ago, there were a lot of runtime packers, but runtime packers have a problem in itself. They're easy to detect because they trigger heuristic detections, but just an idea, there's other ways of actually modifying a binary to make it unique without using a runtime packer, which would be using compiler settings. There's been really interesting research on that, and compiler settings are a good way to obfuscate the binary a certain way. There's still problems in there, like the API calls the binary would set, or the strings the binary would contain, and for these kind of problems, you just have to use extra fixes, integrate in your malware to obfuscate the strings at runtime, and try to hide the API calls by dynamic resolution. So this is the first point. The second rule, one binary to rule forever doesn't work anymore because we have file hash-based detection, which is also some kind of pattern. If you infect more than one machine with the same file, this file shows up on more than one machine, logically. And file hash-based detection is working on exactly this, like finding a malicious binary and trying to find the same binary on other infected machines. This is bad. So what you have to do, is regularly update the binaries. We have seen malware which does it, which does in a interval of a few days to a few weeks, updates the binaries and just pushes a fresh binary, maybe with other compiler settings, to the machines to just not have the same binary on the machine forever. If you do this as an attacker, watch out to not update via service in Russia or in China or maybe Taiwan, because this could raise attention as well. Rule number 3, repetitive artifacts. If you have ever looked at malware, malware always does changes to the machine, and there's a specific set of changes which it does, which we call artifacts, which sometimes are repetitive. You have repetitive file names, you have repetitive registry key names, you have repetitive persistence methods or infiltration methods. If you can teach your binaries to use different names or to alter the persistence method or to alter the infiltration method of the machine, you destroy patterns. As a malware author, everything I want to do is destroying patterns. This is a very good way to do this. Rule number 4, environmental insensitivity. If you write a piece of malware, you might want to teach the malware where to run and where not, because as you know, there's a lot of sandboxes out there, there's a lot of analysts like me, there's a lot of virtual machines which are dedicated to analyze a piece of malware. If you can tell the malware to just not execute there, you're a lot safer. And I'm telling you, if someone plans to do an APT, the first thing he should start to do is actually decide on the targets he wants to target, because these have very specific machines, these have very specific behaviors. You can teach the malware to actually just only execute on this set of people. This way, you have the best anti-sandbox trick that could ever exist out there if you just do not execute on a system that you do not know and do not target. Rule number 4, singular persistence. You might have heard about the P in the A and the P of the T. But malware tries to remain in control of the infected system. And there are several ways of persistence methods on a machine, and they have all been analyzed to death. There are security systems actually watching these kind of persistence methods, which would be like setting a specific registry key or creating a specific service on the machine or infecting the master boot record. All these techniques are monitored by security solutions. Now what I've seen in the past, which I thought was very smart, was like persistence method that would heal themselves when being deactivated. So for example, you could write a malware which has like a second, starts a second process in the machine or starts a dedicated service, or maybe just only one thread which watches another thread and checks if one dedicated persistence method is still there, is still existent, and if it gets deleted by some security solution, you just reset it and recreate it. And if you do not want to trust on one persistence method, you could just add them all and have a big network of persistence on the infected machine. Rule number 6, the separation of layers. I'm analyzing a lot of malware now, and most of them have like a payload and a runtime packer. The runtime packer, which shows all the anti-analysis and protects the binary, which in my eyes is pretty stupid, because this way, me as an analyst, I just have to remove the runtime packer and I have a beautifully plain binary with plain strings and plain API calls. So what I would suggest is, yeah, this is dangerous because antivirus solutions actually search in memory for malicious payloads. So what I actually would suggest is to have like an integrated approach and spread the anti-analysis throughout the entire binary to protect it from analysis or sandboxes or threat detection. Finally, rule number 7, known spheres, my favorite one because I don't understand it very well, is different spheres where you want to act. Remember the A, you want to be advanced. You want to do something that not 90% of all the malware analysts out there understand. Actually, pretty much all of the binaries, or let's say 90% of the binaries that I see, do the same things and look the same way. There are 32-bit executables which execute on every environment and show me immediately what they do. So what you want to do as a malware analyst is you want to find a new battlefield. You want to include a challenge that not 90% of all the analysts can analyze. There's a lot of research going on this. There's malware actually using it. What you need to do as a malware author is actually just integrating it into your product. So if you have all these seven attributes, I would say this is a very sophisticated malware. And let me tell you something, the malware that I see today, or that most other people see, is not very sophisticated. What I did for my case study is coming up with these 7 points and making like a rule set of them, aggregating them to these 7 rules, that you need unique binaries, you need irregular updates, you need no repetitive artifacts, you need to be environmental sensitive, you need multiple persistence techniques, consistent evasion, and you need to touch unknown spheres. With these 7 points, you're very sophisticated. Now I looked at 4 different APT malware families and figured out there's a lot of blanks in there. These 7 rules I applied to the Black Energy Trojans, which were like a crimeware kit used in an APT attack. There were the Havix malware, where I didn't look at all the binaries, but the ones I saw were like beautiful Windows software, beautifully calling APIs and showing strings and everything, but not looking like malware. The third case study I did on BlackPaws. You might have heard about the breach of the Target Corporation in the United States. So BlackPaws is one of the most unsophisticated malwares I've ever seen. I have to say that. And the Evil Bunny malware, which you might have not heard about, that was one project of mine analyzing a piece of malware belonging to the, I think Kaspersky calls it Animal Farm APT. Anyway, if you look at these kind of binaries, whatever background they might have, and at the sophistication that you add to their activities, you find out there's a lot of unsophisticated threats out there. You find out there's a lot of not very complicated malware. But you know what? If you look at this scala very closely, there's like one blank line in there, one very blank line, which is the BlackPaws malware used to breach the Target Corporation. And I think, financially speaking, this was the malware making the most money, because the BlackPaws malware managed to steal more than 56 million financial card records from Target within 1 month. And I don't know how much money you get for a credit card number nowadays, but if you put this like 10 cents per credit card number, you might just as well have like more than $5 million, which you can actually earn with this work of 1 month. And as I told you, the malware is not very sophisticated. So what you can conclude from this, the malware is not sophisticated, it made a lot of money. The threat detection didn't work. The detection that was in place might have shown some log entries, whatever, but the entire detection logic didn't work, it failed. And it fails a lot. It fails a lot of time. Threat detection we have today works on a principle. It is searching for patterns. It is searching for something that it can evaluate as malicious. And if there's nothing malicious to see, we'll just say it's benign. So here's the 101 of threat detection, which I was just talking about. To detect a threat, you have to know the binary. Or you have to know the behavior of the binary. You have to recognize the binary because you saw it before, or you know what the binary does to a virtual machine and to a sandbox is something malicious. If you can derive these informations, you can be sure you have found malware, or you can be sure it's benign. But this kind of approach relies on knowing patterns. If the threat detection doesn't have a pattern telling it the behavior is malicious, or this binary looks like something I've seen before, if that's not present, no threat detection on the planet can actually tell you it is. This applies to everything that searches for threats in the network, on the machine, in the memory, on the file system, in the registry, whatever. If there's no known malicious pattern, there's no chance of actually detecting the threat. So this is the information gap I was talking about. This is just only one problem that we face in the industry. There's a lot more, and I'm telling you, there's a big gap. There's a big need for talented people and for people who actually want to tackle these kind of problems. So what I want to ask people is to actually go into that field and try very hard to succeed and to create new solutions for us today. So summing it up, what I think is innovation and what we need today in our field would be, for once, bright minds. The second thing that I think we need today a lot, or we want to demand from people like you, is mad skills. You need to know something, you need to understand something to actually be able to come up with a feasible solution. And the third point, which I would want you to show, is to be a driven character. To be actually wanting to create solutions and wanting to change something. To not run after the idea of other people's, but come up with your own idea. Try to understand the problem and try to come up with something new and come up with something better. So all three of these attributes, to understand, to be smart, and to be determined. This is what I think makes up innovation and what we have a desperate need for this innovation gap. But there is a but, of course. I'd like events like this one today, or events I've been to before, or when I'm talking to friends of mine, or when I'm at a school talking to young people, asking them about what they want to do in life. They're like, yeah, this sounds cool what you do, this sounds fun and challenging, but I'm not sure if I can fit in there. I'm not sure if I could ever manage to do this. I hear this a lot. There might be people among the audience now that say, like, oh, this is bogus, but there's very few people who've never really had fear in their life of tackling something unknown, of trying on a project that they were not sure if they could succeed. So this kind of fear I have summed up recently in some few quotes which I collected in only 2 different conferences where I met a lot of professional people, which were, I have to learn this, I don't understand what you do, I have to learn this. I'm not sure about this, what you do. This looks very complicated. Someday I will try to learn this also because I think it's cool, but I can't do it now. I'm not good at whatever. This is the worst thing to say. Actually, I'm not good at. Oh, maybe there's one thing that's actually more destroying. It's I can't. You will smile, but I get this a lot. These are quotes that I wrote down after the second conference in a very short time. And believe me or not, all of these quotes came from women. I myself am a very big fan of diversity in information security and actually every field. And I get a lot of insecurity, especially from the female characters around, who tell me exactly this. But let me point out that this is not a female problem. This is a problem that a lot of young people have. A lot of young people don't really talk about. That they see a lot of very technological things, a lot of very complicated things, and that they don't start on learning them because they're afraid they can never actually achieve anything. Let me tell you, I had the same thing. I was there at exactly that point when this female reverse engineering challenge came up. I was one of these females, one of these youngsters saying, like, I'm not sure if I can ever achieve this. I was working as a malware analyst, watching other malware analysts, day in, day out. I was seeing them reverse engineering, I was seeing them writing reports and like having really cool findings, and I was always wondering how they got there, but I never tried myself. So what this challenge did to me, or changed my life in a way, so I would actually realize that there's a lot of things out there that I don't know. There's a lot of gaps I have in my head, and that I could actually tackle them. I'm not saying that people should go out now and read another set of books or do another set of tutorials or go to another lecture to listen to someone explaining the cool stuff. What I want you to do is actually to go out and try yourself, to get yourself a cool project, to join on a project at university, to join an open source project, to get your own thing done, to do something that you think is cool and you want to achieve, and to actually finish it. There's also a lot of people starting on projects and never finishing them. It's just as good as if you had never started. So the final part of the talk today is the what now. I told you a lot about what gaps we have in security and what you could fill and how I think you should do it. But I haven't told you yet how I think you should actually go on to this specific problem. And if I could tell you something, I would want it to be to go out and kick ass. This is something which I would have loved if when I was young and was starting in technology, I would have loved someone to just tell me this, to just do things. This sounds very easy to say, but in a lot of people's minds it's very hard to actually understand that you have to get their hands dirty, you have to get their hands on stuff to actually achieve something. By reading books and doing tutorials, you get a lot of theoretical information to your head, but what you actually need to do is apply this information. On this picture, you see a fight. It looks like a very tough fight. I think it is, I'm not sure. I want to introduce you a young lady which I look up to a lot. You see on this picture, on the left side, a young lady named Linda. Linda is my karate teacher. 2 years ago, I started with a very specific type of karate. I started to do Kyokushin, where I had to learn how to actually kick people and how to be kicked. It sounds like very tough. I was very scared of studying this. I admitted I didn't actually want to go to these classes because they were very hard. You have to do a lot of push-ups, you have to do a lot of exercise, which I wasn't able to do. And actually, I think it was there where I delivered this mindset of just tackling the problem with the same questions in my head that I see in other papers of like, and I'm not sure if I can achieve this, I'm not sure if I can do this, but I will try anyway. Because failure, especially on things that you're preparing for, is not the big of an issue. The bigger issue is that you never try to actually achieve something. So yeah, about the karate, I'm still going to these classes, I'm still scared, but not that much anymore as in the beginning, and I'm showing progress. And this is something that I would give to you. I want to understand that you have to make progress. You have to start learning something, and you have to try to get into an end. Now, I'm not black belt yet, but this is one of my goals for the next 10 years to actually achieve this black belt. And let me tell you something, reverse engineering I learned in a lot shorter time than karate, because I think it's actually easier. So what I've been telling you, you have to learn things, for sure. And for your personal experience of yourself, don't remind yourself of all the things you cannot do. Remind yourself of the things that you're good at. Remind yourself of the qualities that you have and how you can use them to achieve, to learn the things that you can do. This is something also about the quotes from before, where people told me, no, I'm not good at this, I can't write code, I can't analyze malware, I can't exploit stuff, I can't do whatever. So I have these people all over again telling me the stuff that they cannot do. But you know what? The stuff that I cannot do didn't get me anywhere. It was always the things that I were good at were actually supporting the other qualities that I delivered or that I developed over time. So use the talents that you have today. Like for example, before starting to reverse engineering, I was always a good writer. At school, my teachers told me I'm very good in writing. I think they also told me I'm not good in math, well, I'm not sure about that. But all my life long, I was writing a lot. I like to write reports, I like to write blogs. I was a good writer. And for winning the challenge, there were 2 tasks to do. It was analyzing malware, reverse engineering the malware, and writing a report. I wasn't good at analyzing malware back then, but I was fucking good in writing reports. So I used that skill to actually make up for the lacking gaps on the reverse engineering side. And you know what? It was a fucking good report. It was a 30-page report that I wrote for the challenge, which looked awesome. It didn't have all the technical information that I could have found, but it was a great report. So what I'm asking you to do is find out what you're good at and use that to actually make up for the gaps that you have in other fields that you would like to learn. The final thing, which I said in the beginning, the dollar thing. I pointed out there's a lot of money to make in our career. I'm also having a lot of people telling me, oh, I'm not that interested in money. I rather study philosophy, or I rather try to become a journalist one day, which is also, it's very cool fields. But what I'm telling these young people is don't forget about the money. There's something about money, that's how money looks like. There's something about the money, I'm not telling you all to get rich. Honestly, I'm not interested in making all this money. I'm not interested in spending all this money. But what having a good salary in mind means for you is actually, this can give you confidence. If you're making good money, you can afford your own life. You have more security. You can pay for your apartment, you can pay for your food. You can afford to change your job and to go to some other company. You can afford to be unemployed for 2 months because you're not scared. If you're living on a minimum salary, you don't have this confidence. Money gives you choices. As I mentioned, you can choose your job. You can choose the company you want to go to. You might not have this choice if you're living on a minimum salary because you have to pay bills, right? Everyone has to pay bills. If you have money, this is not a problem. You can actually set out for 2 months and take time to choose another project, to choose another job. So what the money gives you as well is freedom. As I told you, I'm not in love with the money, but I'm in love with freedom. So finally, closing this talk, what I want to tell you is to choose your dreams carefully. There's obstacles. If you can identify the obstacle and actually achieve to get over it, this might be a field where you're entering, which could be the dream of your life, what you want to do. I sort of did this. I had no idea that reverse engineering binaries was so much fun. But after starting it, I figured out this is what I want to do. This is what makes me happy. I'm very happy now, I'm telling you. So choose your dreams carefully. Don't listen so much to what other people say, but think about what you want to do yourself with your career and make your decisions up with that. Because you can never really be sure if the dreams you have, you're running after, don't look like something like that. I promise you, I'm a reverse engineer. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm meeting great people. I'm making money, which is nice. I like this kind of job. I like to provide solutions or provide information to people who actually need it. And I like to understand things. I like to take things apart. So finally, I promise this is the last slide with pink headings. If I had 3 wishes, coming back to the beginning of the talk, if I had 3 wishes, the first thing would be that everyone has unbiased choices. That everyone has all the information he needs to actually choose what he wants to do and goes out and does it. Again, this is something which is, I think, harder for women than for men, to leave all the biased information aside and just understand what ideas are really about, or what technology is really about, and what they could do with it. So I'd wish for you to leave the biased information aside. The second wish which I would have is that we would all be free to think whatever we want. Because believe it or not, there's businesses and there's countries and there's societies where this is not the case. People are not allowed to think what they want. And then the third wish, I would want the security of our products or our security today to be integrated in systems to guarantee our safety and privacy. Now if you go out of this talk and think about what wishes you have and what you're hunting after, I hope I gave you some interesting ideas on what to wish for. And, well, I want to say thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, please ask now or catch me up later. I think I will be here till tomorrow. Thank you. If there's no questions at all, thanks a lot for... Oh, question.
Hola. ¿Funciona? Ah, vale. Could you repeat the 7 rules again, please?
You want to write malware?
Who knows?
Can I have the slide? I'm not sure. Oh, I can try. Oh, wait, the first one was to create unique binaries. The second one was to exchange the binary on the system regularly. The third one was, you know what, maybe it's easier to send you the slide deck later on. Oh, great. The first one, not to be unique. The second one, you have one binary to rule forever. The third one, you leave repetitive artifacts on the machine. Number 4, you are not sensitive to your environment. Number 5, you have a singular persistence method. Number 6, you don't care about separation of layers. And number 7, you only move in known spheres. Thank you. If there's no other questions, I am very happy to be here today, and thank you for your attention. Have a good time.
As you are, I think, the only female here as a speaker in the auditorium, could you please tell us...
There was a second one.
The second one? Oh,
Yeah,
maybe.
she's sitting there.
It's the first one I have seen.
Sorry.
So I'm wondering if you could tell us which is the greatest challenge or difficulty that you have faced being a woman in this industry. Thank you.
Myself. Seriously, the biggest problem I always had was the doubt I had myself into whatever I would want to achieve. It was holding myself back from joining projects which I thought sound interesting because I was afraid of embarrassing myself, of joining the project, not being good enough for the other team members, which was fundamentally wrong. I was scared of starting on reverse engineering binaries before the challenge because I thought there's so many other people who are really good at this and doing great work. And if I would start that, I would probably fail terribly. And this was a problem until I found out that everyone fails and that failing is actually a good thing because when you fail in something, you learn a lot more than if you actually achieve something. And this is something that I had to understand. I think a lot of people have to understand this. Because, as I said, I experienced a lot of people coming up asking me, how did you start? Or how did you do this? Or what would you recommend to do that? I think this is the wrong questions to ask. What you should ask is like, do you have a challenge for me? Do you have an exercise for me? Do you know about any challenges out there? Do you know about a capture the flag contest where I could join? Do you know people who could get me that direction? This is, I think, the better questions to ask, or the better direction to go. All right. Thank you very much.